Welcome to Political Pop Culture, where the important and the not-so-important issues of the day are broken down, discussed, and, when necessary, even occasionally mocked and ridiculed. I am your host, JP, and this is my take. Governor Greg Abbott has led every single poll conducted this year in the race for Texas governor. Every single poll. But even though Abbott's challenger, Robert Francis O'Rourke, has not led in a single poll, media outlets are falling all over themselves, talking about how narrow Abbott's lead is. While it is true that Abbott doesn't have the double-digit lead that he had over his previous challengers, abortion Barbie Wendy Davis, who he crushed by more than 20 points in 2014, or the hapless Lupe Valdez, who lost to Abbott by more than 13 points in 2018, O'Rourke is still trailing by 7 to 8 points in every poll available since the beginning of September. While pundits and political commentators on major news networks nationwide want to tout an Abbott 7-point lead as somehow being a victory for O'Rourke, I would argue that the only reason O'Rourke is polling so well is because of the name recognition his failures have afforded him. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look. Robert Francis, I refuse to call him Beto, by the way. Robert Francis is a con man. He's a con man who's really only notable for his uncanny ability to fail upward. Now, I'll give the guy some credit here. He did go from being a city council member in El Paso to being a congressman in the U.S. House of Representatives. So that's something. But unfortunately for Robert Francis, from there, his career has been one of failed campaign after failed campaign, with another failed campaign about to be added to his resume. Question: how stupid are Texas Democrats that they keep nominating this guy? In 2018, Robert Francis lost his bid for the U.S. Senate seat held by Republican Ted Cruz. Now, Ted Cruz won by a 3% margin. This narrow loss is one that Robert Francis went on to tout as though it was somehow a victory. After losing his Senate race in November of 2018, O'Rourke decided that he'd run for president. Of course, because when you can't even win a Senate seat in your own state, you're a shoo-in for the Oval Office, right? In his failed bid for the Democratic presidential nomination, Robert Francis repeatedly referenced his loss to Cruz, again as if losing by 3% wasn't a loss. You lost, sport. If you're not first, you're last.
If you ain't first, you're last. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, Robert Francis is about to be last yet again. The most recent polling from Quinnipiac shows Abbott with a solid 7-point lead. That's not just with Republicans. Abbott is leading O'Rourke by 7 points with independents. There's also a virtual tie. Now, I'll give him credit here. O'Rourke is showing a slight advantage, 49% to Abbott's 48%, with Hispanic voters. But Democrats cannot win in the state of Texas without the Hispanic vote. And right now, the Hispanic vote, it is a statistical tie. I will link the poll in the description so you can see all the data for yourself, but I'm going to tell you right now, there is not a positive spin here for Democrats. Texans agree with Governor Abbott on the border. They agree with him on the economy, on guns, and Texans agree with Abbott on busing illegal aliens to Democrat-led cities and states. Regardless of what the mainstream media wants you to believe, regardless of what you see on Twitter or Facebook, Texas is still solidly red. Greg Abbott is going to be reelected, and Robert Francis, I don't know, he can go on a book tour or something. He can talk about getting beaten in the governor's race somehow being a moral victory or some other such nonsense. Nationwide, polling is showing that independents are breaking hard for Republican candidates. I've been talking about it for the last few weeks. We've seen it in Washington State. We've seen it in Nevada. We're seeing it in Georgia. And I got to tell you, I think we're going to see it in Pennsylvania too. Oz may be a terrible candidate, but Fetterman, he is a disgrace, even by Democrat standards. So here's the bottom line. Robert Francis O'Rourke is about to be a 3-time loser. And I hope after the shellacking he gets in November that the people of Texas realize what a joke this flim-flam man really is. He's a con man. He's a BS artist. And at the risk of sounding repetitive, he's going to be a 3-time loser. That's my take. What's your take? You can let me know your take in the comments below. You can also let me know your take by joining the cult at PolPopCult on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Rumble, and Truth Social. Thank you for listening.